We're live. We're live, guys. There we go.
There we go. Okay, it kept muting the mic. Sorry. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome back. Today we're going to talk about stuff and things with none other than Aron Ra. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Have you noticed that all these podcasts start out really late?
Well, now we know why. Because I was not sending the stuff, but I don't know anything about technology. So
Yeah.
It's not the first
Well, I got
time.
an excuse because I'm an old guy. What's yours?
I just don't know anything about computers. I mean, I can do like Word, and I can do Google.com, but not much beyond that. The Twitters, I do the Twitters. But yeah, so it's not the first time we've had you on. We had you on for a live chat a long time ago, back when, not long after my channel first started. So I was in 2017. And then you and I did a couple of collabs fairly recently. Well, I guess it wasn't so recently now. The videos we did a video on taxonomy, as well as.
Thank you for that, by the way. Thank you for involving me in that.
Oh, it was fun. I thought, who else? You'd be the perfect person to be in that. So that one was fun. And then the other one was the Cambrian video, where PragerU has now gone down they've drunk the intelligent design Kool-Aid, and so yikes. Yeah, you did a whole thing about that. What are your thoughts? Were you surprised at all that PragerU, the climate change denying history revising organization, became intelligent design?
He and I have a mutual friend. A friend of mine was a friend of his. They used to work together. They used to dine together, restaurants and everything fairly regularly. They used to be actual friends, and now they've completely parted ways. And now this old friend of his is now a friend of mine, and he makes videos against PragerU all the time. And he tells me that Dennis Prager, this friend of mine, tells me that Dennis Prager just does not give a flying fuck what the truth is. He makes long green on doing his bullshit channel. There's no way that he would ever be able to turn down this stupid amount of money that he's making just by being an idiot. It's like if you were to ask Alex Jones to be worried about his credit among the scientific community. Really? Yeah.
Right.
When this guy would have been never heard of by anybody until he went completely out of his mind, and that's the only way he manages to make a living. What do you do with that?
Sure. Yeah.
And I saw another one. There was a guy named Greg Braden. Somebody just turned me on to him and showed me one of his videos. And here's a guy who talks for 30 minutes, does not state a true thing ever at all, just asserts a whole bunch of nonsense and lies, and that's how he makes a living. Has almost as many subscribers as I do, makes a shit ton more than I do, because people would rather be lied to than to understand the way things really are, and I don't get that.
Yeah, that is pretty tragic. Well, I mean, mega churches exist for a reason, But
yeah,
that
was my last video, was about a mega church pastor who again made $50 million and has 6 campuses for his churches. 6 campuses. And one of them, and that means that each one of those has multiple buildings. So we're not talking about a little church, here's the steeple. We're talking about several buildings in a church.
Right.
And then there's like the sanctuary is always of stupid proportions. And like his primary sanctuary is 4,000 seats.
Yikes.
And this guy, when you see him, you're like, how the fuck did you make $50 million? You have no charisma. You don't know anything at all. All you got is a country-fi hillbilly accent, and you're plenty of good old boy stupid. $50 million? Yeah.
I mean, I do like to dunk on the Southern accent, but alas, people keep telling me I have a Southern accent. So
I mean, I've known so many of that exact guy living in the single wide, but right next to me.
Mm-hmm.
In the next single wide over from me.
Yeah, it's it is really tragic. Yeah,
because when I grew up, it was the upper middle class was the ones that had the double wides, and only rich people had triple wide.
Right. Yeah. You were in South Africa recently, if I'm correct.
I was on a fascinating trip. I'm really, really glad that I did that.
And so, what'd you see? How'd that go overall?
Well, they wanted me as the videographer, which was just great. That I had a function to perform. However, one of the other guys, who is a director of the Natural History Museum in London, that one, the NHS, the director of the NHS, is in the car. Or is he not? He's not the primary director. Vertebrate paleontology exhibits at the NHS, and he was complaining as we're going out into the field, and he says that he wished we'd hired a videographer, and I'm like, hello. What do you think? You know, because I just thought I was just some YouTuber that they invited along for a lark.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is that everybody on this expedition is a doctoral student or already accomplished PhD or a museum curator. I mean, they're the top. They're all professor blankety blank PhD, and I'm surrounded by them. There's like 10 of us, so there's all of these experts in the field from all over the world, from Australia, from France, England, South Africa, of course, and me. I'm the sole representative of the United States, and I'm just the YouTuber guy. So the thing that saved me was that somehow I managed to keep up in the conversation such that I never said anything to embarrass myself. I never said anything to show how uneducated I am.
Well, considering the people that we do have in the United States, and especially the ones who run the country, I think you are a terrific delegate on our behalf.
Well, I can just imagine a whole bunch of people in the scientific community that wished that the U.S. could be represented by somebody that had at least a bachelor's degree, which I will have shortly. I had some classes, a number of them, that had to be canceled because of the whole pandemic thing got in the way. I should have had my degree already.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was hoping that I would have it by the end of this semester. But it might not happen until May, and I'm frustrated because there's one damn class getting in my way that I couldn't take right now that I had to get.
What's the class?
Oh, it's just calculus. I've taken
Calculus.
every other class that's pertinent to my subject, and I took calculus once before, but I had to drop it. I had to drop it because my contract, my job changed contracts, and I couldn't go to school anymore.
Right.
And the frustrating thing is that I was doing okay. I could have finished that if I just had the time to do it. Mm. So now I got to start all over again with that class. And the only issue with it is that I was like right there years ago, and now I still and that's the one thing that I'm missing now, but to have my degree. But anyway, when I was on this expedition, as I said, I was with top experts in especially Permian vertebrates, and they treated me as one of them, and I was thankfully able to keep up in the conversations so that when they would be talking to each other, I'm able to follow along. You know, which is something when you realize that everybody there is Professor blankety blank PhD,
Right.
curator of.
Right. Exactly.
So fortunately, I did not embarrass myself. I did have to ask for a couple of clarifications, but thankfully I did that on camera for the sake of my audience.
Right. Right. That's one way to do it. Yeah. That must have been very interesting. I haven't been outside of the United States yet, and so that would be something that I'd like to do.
That was a wonderful trip. I mean, it was taxing because it's the desert.
Sure. Yeah.
So, and for those of you, the place where we were looked an awful lot like West Texas, say like Midland, Odessa area. There's some rolling hills a little bit, and there's a little scrub brush, and that's it. Otherwise, there are places that look a bit like Mars. I mean, there's hardly any vegetation at all, and it's just hot. And it was at like 42 Celsius, which is not a big deal. I've experienced much worse heat than that. But what they would do is they would drive us out at dawn and drop us off in different locations every day.
Right.
And you carry your backpack with your pick and your lunch and all that. And you were instructed to find shade at lunch and take a 2-hour lunch, most of which involves sleeping on the ground.
Oh, wow.
Because with the heat, when you're in it from dawn, from sunrise to 5 o'clock in the afternoon, it's like the first couple of hours is wonderful. Like, oh yeah, I'm good. This is great. I'm having a beautiful day. But the last 2 hours of the day is like, oh God, shoot me.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
So, I mean, you think it's difficult to just lay down on the ground and go to sleep, right?
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, at one point I got on the walkie-talkie. They told me that they told me to just wait where I was. The truck was going to come by, and I'm close to the road. I can see the road. I said, okay, I'll wait right here. So, all right, we'll be a little while, and just wait there. We'll come pick you up. Okay, good. Lay down. And I'm out.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I got to see a lot of animals. I got to see tortoises. I can't remember what kind of snake it was that I had go over my foot. There were cobras around, but I didn't happen across any of those. We did happen across kudu and ibex and impala and
Nice.
Yeah, it was a beautiful thing. It was all of the wildlife that I got to see, even though I'm in a parched and desolate desert. But the only thing that I encountered that actually scared me was baboons.
Oh yeah, I can imagine. Yeah.
Those are bigger than you think and faster than you can believe.
Oh my god. Yeah.
I was watching a pair of them from atop of the hill. I'm watching a pair of them, and they passed right by the expedition, right by the dig, where the guys are digging. These two baboons run right past them. I mean, at blinding speed. I'm like, they didn't even notice. These are like 100-pound monkeys just ran right past you. How did you not see that?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And if you piss one off.
Oh yeah. And they have gigantic canines. Yeah.
Yeah, they are nightmare fuel. I had no idea. And then, so that when I was going, my professor, one of my classes here, had done some work in Cape Town, and she said that she had personal experiences with baboons, and she said they're terrifying. She said that in the city, the baboons will wander around in the city in Cape Town, and that one of them opened her car door, got into her passenger seat, and just sat there looking at her for a minute as she's in traffic. The door is now closed. He closed the door behind him. Her passenger now is a baboon who sits butt to head as tall as she does, because they're bigger than you think.
Oh yeah.
So then he grabbed her purse or her lunch. I can't remember what it was. He grabbed some bag that she had, opened the car door, and got out.
Jeez.
Think about that. So she's warning me that if a baboon ever takes anything from you, don't try to get it back. Like,
Yeah,
you don't have to tell me. Dude,
yeah, they look
yours.
pretty scary. Just from the internet, I can't even imagine sitting directly facing one. I mean, even in zoos, they look pretty large from a distance. So, yeah, they're wild. Hello, everyone who is in the side chat. Welcome. The other, that's right. Your Phylogeny Explorer project is now up and available for all to see.
It is. It's going under another kind of revision, though. They're trying to put in this kind of data, or this. I think we're on our fourth database, fourth incarnation of that, and this new device of the data design of the database is trying to. They're telling me that they can take all of the data from all of these other taxonomic sites and migrate it all over and automatically place it in the tree.
Nice.
And I don't understand how that is even possible, because I can just think of 100 problems, and I don't know anything about computer engineering. I can think of 100 problems for this. And they're saying, well, this is why it's taken 6 months to try to get this to happen. But they say that when it's done, that it will happen. And I think we've been waiting for this to be done since January. So it's been a while. They've been working on this one revision. But yeah, it's in other words, it's there. There's variance in depiction that we're working at now, because one of the things that I realize is difficult for people is that you can't get a snapshot of just the parts you're interested in. Whereas a lot of other trees will show you just that one little snippet, but then you can't get the big thing either. And so we're trying to get to where you can see the big thing if you want to see the big thing, but you will also get a snippet if you're looking for that. And also this thing called breadcrumbs, where you can trace back from one species to a common ancestor to another species. For whatever reason, the people that said, well, that's completely different on the front end than it is on the back end, and you don't realize, but it requires different programs to interlock with each other. I have no idea what the fuck they're talking about.
Time Tree does that, I believe. So that would be really neat to do that, to show where T-Rex and humans meet, what their common ancestor was, something like that.
Yeah, for me, what inspired me to do this was the Arizona Tree of Life project. And the Arizona Tree of Life project is just little snippets of the tree on different pages. So you click that link and it takes you to the next snippet of the page, and you can just take a picture of that. And it makes it very easy. And the downside of what we've done is that we have the entire tree, but it's not in different pages. It's the entire tree, and you can zoom in and you can zoom out, but you can't see pictures all along the way, which is kind of necessary. So we've been trying to do a thing about signposts, trying to show people a way so that they don't get lost in it, because it's really easy to get lost in this fucking tree.
Yeah,
just imagine a spider web. It's just a spider web, and you look in all the interconnecting links right in the spider web, but except that the spider web is the size of a city block. But it's the same size increments.
Right. Yeah, it's a beautiful tree. It's got innumerable other branches, so it's not like just go into humans. You can go off in all sorts of different directions, and plants or bacteria, whatever, and see all sorts of different organisms. It looks very nice.
Well, thank you. It's just, you have to know what you're doing, or you're going to get lost in it. That's the kind of the downside. We want to make it we want to make it beneficial as an educational device, and we're also seeking peer-reviewed status. But we can't even seek that. And we were supposed to have that months ago, but we can't even get that until we get this whole thing. We had manually entered 70 some odd thousand taxa by hand. And then they say that they can bring in another 2.3 mil with the push of a button, but it's taken almost a year to get it to where we can push that button to where the programming understands what it's supposed to do with everything, which is why, as I said, all I could think of were problems. So they're trying to write their way out of all of the other problems, which if we had just continued doing it manually, no, we wouldn't have caught up, because it took us 3 years with dozens of volunteers to put in 70,000 taxa.
Right.
And all of this is according to peer-reviewed sources. There's a number of them. There's a lot of different sources that we cite, and then we have to put in our citations on where the information came from, and it's been very difficult. But I'm glad that it exists.
Absolutely, yeah. It is a very good resource for showing people how diverse life is. That really is part of the problem with getting people to conceptualize evolution. Is, I think, one of the major issues is they don't even understand the extent of modern biodiversity, let alone the biodiversity that has existed historically.
And let's just imagine that people had an idea of the biodiversity that currently exists, the things that are still alive now, or that, including the things that have gone extinct just within the last 100 years. Because that is such a wealth already, that if you didn't have any fossils, you would already be able to see a smooth enough transition from one thing to another just out of extant organisms. And this without any fossil forms. But then when you add the fossil forms, and by the way, we pretty much exhausted Fossil Works, which is a peer-reviewed documented site from for finding fossil classifications, and this is one of the sites that we've been using for our tree. And we found some discrepancies with that, and so we've been trying to make improvements even over existing sites and such. It's just that adds a whole other level of depth. I mean, you try to imagine the number of species that we have now, and we have more genera in the fossil record than we have living today. And we know that every genera represents multiple species, and every species, of course, represents minimum hundreds of thousands of individuals.
Right.
Yet there are species that are known in the fossil record from only a fragment of a jawbone. Think about that.
Yeah.
So how many millions of individuals, generations of individuals, are represented by that one fraction of a jawbone?
It's kind of crazy. If, you got the whole stratum where you have dinosaurs and things, and then you have the one little mammal fragment. But of course, there wasn't just one single mammal running around. There were a whole bunch of them all inhabiting this and having different niches.
One of the other nice things about the trip that I made to South Africa was that we were in Permian strata. So in the range of 260 to 262 million years ago. And so everything we find, of course, fits along with that. We don't find any rabbits. We don't find any dinosaurs, because this is before the dinosaurs.
Right.
What we do find, a temnospondyle with a giant carnivorous, a salamander crocodile. What would happen if you made a crocodile out of a salamander?
Yeah, the temnospondals were weird. You had Baggyherpeton and all sorts of things. It's like the amphibians kind of had their heyday, for a while, and they were kicking everybody else's butt, and then the amniotes sort of took over.
Just imagine encountering a salamander that can kill you. With not with a poison either, just with the power of its bite and its sheer size.
Yeah,
just think about that. So a lot of the other things, and something that I found. I mean, I found therapsid fossils myself, and one of them was for a thing called Titanosuchus. And so what this is, it's named as if it's a giant crocodile, but it's because the name is really old. This was before people realized that they're actually dealing with more of a mammal than more
like Basilosaurus or something. Yeah,
exactly. So the name is kind of misleading. It's not a giant crocodile. It's technically not a mammal. It looks rather lizard-like, except that it's the size of a fucking cow.
And it's got gigantic canines.
Exactly. Yeah. So the fuck is this? It's someplace between a lizard and a hippopotamus.
Yeah.
So it's my favorite period, and one of the reasons that the Permian is so fascinating to me is because you have an entire ecosystem that's pre-dinosaurs. This is way before the dinosaurs showed up. And everybody knows dinosaurs because we've seen plenty of movies about dinosaurs. But nobody's ever seen most of the shit from the Permian. I mean, they're used to like one. If you're into movies about that, there was a show called Primeval that showed one of these Permian species with the huge canines and everything.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember what they called this thing, but anyway, they had a wealth of different animals, just bizarre and as weird as you can imagine, filling every niche that we currently have. They had the gopher type, they had the crocodile type, you had the hippopotamus type, the bison type, except that they're all so fucked up. The bison type, for example, like the Permian version of the buffalo had a beak. Imagine a turtle with no shell. And it's got a beak and tusks.
Right.
But is otherwise toothless.
Yeah.
So it's like a herd of shellless gamera.
They're saying in the chat, gorgonopsids.
Yeah, that was the word I couldn't remember, and so I'm trying to remember what the name of the. It begins with an L, and I can't remember what it. Don't you hate these?
Isn't Lysanops?
Close, but there was some
also,
other.
We also have a couple of questions already in the chat. Do you want me to?
And there was one. There was one in that group that was also venomous, which was amusing. Just imagine a lizard dog with a poisonous bite.
Yeah, that is intriguing.
Yeah, a lizard dog the size of a large dog, but looking more lizardy, and not lizard. So this is a whole different world. The trees were not trees. The gophers are not gophers. The buffalo with the beaks are definitely not buffalo, and the hippopotamuses are nightmare fueled. I mean, they're just the most hideous looking things. So anyway, what's the question we have in the panel?
We have a couple already. Let me start with the first one. That was from Rick Turner for Jackson. Jackson mentioned on a Twitter comment that evolutionary physiology is complete BS.
No, psychology. I think he meant psychology.
Oh, psychology. Yeah, sorry.
Okay, we weren't really going to get into this, but my generalized problem with evolutionary psychology for humans is that they tend to overestimate the effects of evolutionary psychology, or they tend to associate things that aren't necessarily adaptive with being adaptive. Say, like, rape exists because rape is adaptive, or it has a naturally selective advantage when it doesn't really, and that's kind of a weird argument to make, but it has. I understand the desire for it because everything is evolved, right? Our brains are evolved, our behaviors are certainly evolved to an extent. So how many of our behaviors are the result of natural selection and environment, and how many are emergent properties because of our extra large brain? Well, that depends on who you ask. Mm-hmm. But I err on the side of it's probably not a naturally selected behavior in general.
You talk about rape.
Well, that's an example. I mean, that was just an example.
A naturally selective behavior.
Well, see, the thing is that they would say it's, the argument for evolutionary psychology, at least from what I've seen, tends to go like, if a behavior exists, that's because it was naturally selective or was selected in our past. That's why it still exists.
Which is ridiculous because we constantly have aberrations. We have people with underdeveloped cortex. We have people that have dysfunctional motor neurons. We always have people who are sociopaths and psychopaths who have absolutely no compassion with their family, friends, and fellows. But exactly the thing that made us dominant as a species, it was after we lost the excessive muscularity that the other apes have. After we lost that, and before we got the supersized brains. So the only thing we had to our advantage was camaraderie.
Right. Yeah.
Can you imagine? You're not as strong as a chimp. You're just as strong as a human. And that's it. You're just regular human strength. And you're not even tall human. You know, most of them were like 5 feet max. and
Right.
and then on top of that, you're dumb. So you don't have a whole lot of strength, but you can carry a big stick, but you can't put a lot of oomph behind it. So it takes all of your brothers and all of your cousins, and when one of them goes down or one of them is facing a threat, you had better give a damn about that one, because the only reason anybody survives is because the weakest among them has the entire tribe come to their aid with thrown stones and clubs, and a Dinophilus is only going to bother attacking that one. He's not going to take on the entire fucking tribe.
Right.
Okay, we got
exactly.
several questions for Aron.
Yeah, toss it to him.
I'll put them up on screen while I ask them. Beach Price said, which era had the most diversity?
Which era had the most diversity? In the beginning of the Pleistocene. Well, Pliocene, you talk about humanity, or you talk about other things?
I think it just means species diversity in general.
Species diversity,
Jurassic.
I think.
Jurassic.
Okay.
Jurassic was considered to be the best time to be alive, and that's before you have Tyrannosaurus and Triceratops. It's when you had Stegosaurus and Allosaurus. But there was a huge diversity of species on the land and in the sea that were unlike anything else. It was just like 50 million years of pristine living conditions with massive diversity worldwide, especially in the oceans. And this is when before you had mosasaurs, you had ichthyosaurs, which you didn't have in the Cretaceous anymore. For whatever reason, they thinned out. But for the entirety of the Jurassic, you had ichthyosaurs, which were, imagine you try to make a dolphin out of a lizard.
Yep, pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes their size got ridiculous. So many of them were the size of dolphins, and some were the size of large whales.
Mm-hmm.
And they ran the gamut. So there's a huge range, and you have different types of them. So with ichthyosaurs, and this is a beautiful thing about the history of ichthyosaurs. I mean, like they were discovered, I think, by Mary Anning.
Yeah, I think you're right.
She was the one to discover the first one. And what was thought at the time was they thought they were crocodiles. They could recognize that this was a reptilian skeleton. And so if you go to the Crystal Palace Park in London, you'll see the way that 150 years ago, the way that they were depicted. They made these sculptures, and they have these like they're wading in shallow rivers, just like crocodiles would be. You have these ichthyosaurs. And the thing that they didn't know about that was that there's certain features that are in their bodies that don't show up in the skeleton. So there was one fossil somebody found that had to be literally breathtaking when they realized it, because it's like the animal is laying on its side and gets buried and lithographed, so that you get a perfect profile of this animal in life, so that you see the outline of the body, and you can see the tail was not like a crocodile tail. It had a sudden bend pointing down, and all of them did. Every ichthyosaur fossil had a bend pointing down, and nobody noticed the fact that they all did that until they found this one fossil, this lithographic profile that shows a shark tail, and that the bony part goes into the bottom fluke. And then along the back, you can see the whole lithograph. There's a dorsal fin that doesn't have any bones in it at all, but there's a beautiful dolphin's dorsal fin. And when they saw that, they realized that all of their depictions prior to that were completely wrong. They imagined an animal that tried to drag itself out of the water like a sea turtle to lay its eggs. And when they saw that it's really this dolphin-like thing, they realized that this is habitual in the ocean. This gives birth in the ocean. And then they found fossils where there was one that was in the process of giving birth when it died. Live birth. So just imagine the fossil that says everything you thought about this animal is completely wrong. This is what it really is.
There's a famous picture, a depiction of ichthyosaurs in like Hawaiian shirts, and it was like, what if history had turned out differently? And so you got an ichthyosaur at the podium reading a book to the other ichthyosaur students. It's kind of humorous.
Okay, next question is going to enrage Aron. What is the absolute worst argument against evolution you've ever heard? Can you even name one specific?
Well, I wrote a book about a list of them. I mean,
A very good book.
Yeah, the foundational falsehoods of creationism. I think the worst one, the one that always bothered me the most, is the thing that evolution's just a theory, not a fact.
Yep.
So you don't know what a theory is, and you don't know what a fact is either. You know, go back to your trailer, Goober.
Yeah,
I
yeah, I hear
have
that
the clip that you made somewhere on a beach where you explained that it was a fact and a theory, and usually when I get that on Twitter, that's what I will just send them.
If that was recorded on a beach, the only time I've ever recorded a video on a beach happened to be in Cancun.
I think that's where it was.
Yeah, and the funny thing was, is I don't know, people might have had the wrong impression about why the fuck I'm in the Mexican Riviera. I was there because I couldn't afford a dentist in the United States.
Oh, damn.
Oh wow! So it's cheaper to go to Mexico for like
It's
a regular
cheaper to spend a week in the Mexican Riviera and do all of the things that you'd want to do, like the tourist sites and the scuba diving, the swimming. I went snorkeling with barracuda and sea turtles. I did that, but it was cheaper by far to do that in Mexico than it was to just go down to the local strip mall dentist and just have him work on me.
That's insane. That is actually insane.
I had a hard time wrapping my mind around this when my wife suggested, let's go to Mexico for a week and get our dentistry done there because it'll be cheaper. But that's not possible. No, it worked out. Yep, it was. It was a third as much. Add in the place that you stay, all the restaurants that you eat in, everything together, it's a third of what just paying the dentist in the United States would be.
Oh my God.
And you get state-of-the-art care.
That's horrific. Well, it's
I
a nice
I thought we had the best because capitalism in America.
Yeah.
So
and the funny thing is right when we went, it was like Trump was making all this noise about stopping all the Mexicans from coming to the United States. I'm like, and my wife are both like saying, we could just stay here.
Okay, what he really should have been worried about was all of us fleeing south. You know?
Exactly.
It's a nice segue into the next. Also, I think for Aron, from David P. Neff. How do scientists can reconstruct animals based on a teeth or a fraction of a jaw? I don't think they do, but
well, no, you can, because you need teeth to be diagnostic. Now, I've found some fossils that when I was in South Africa, I found vertebrae, ribs. I even found a skull cap. Now, postcranial features like vertebrae and ribs will only tell you so much. It will tell you, is this a therapsid or is this a synapsid, meaning a standard reptile, an actual reptile, because a therapsid is not. Looks like a reptile from the outside, but technically isn't a reptile. But when I found my skull cap, there was enough to show a pineal foramen and some very interesting detail in the construct of the skull. It was fascinating. But there wasn't enough there. It was just the top of the skull with the hole for the third eye. And that's all that was there. So I have the third eye. I can tell you definitely that it's a therapsid. But you need the teeth in order to say anything else. And once you have the teeth, if you have a jaw and teeth, you can identify what the hell that is.
Yeah.
And you will not confuse it. You know, reptile to mammal to whatever. You'll know exactly where that goes.
Right. Yeah, because if you have a certain diet, you're going to have a certain tooth type, you know, and
yeah, but just to go into a little bit deeper than that, I mean, you know that like once upon a time back in the day, when they got, as you mentioned before, Basilosaurus, with alternately named Zeuglodon, originally was the reason I called it Basilosaurus was because they thought that that was a reptile jaw, because
Right.
whales have conical teeth just like reptiles do. But then they realized as they learned more and they started studying, they realized that no, these are mammalian structures, and not even therapsid, actual mammal structures.
Right.
So once you have the jaw, you can tell for definitely sure where it is in the tree.
Right. Speaking of therapsids,
to do that,
there is one of our people in the live chat is RJ Downer, and he actually wrote an entire book about therapsids. It's titled Evolution Slam Dunk. So
yes, and I would love to take any of the creationists that bellyache to me with all of the ignorance of arrogance that they have. It would be so fantastic to take them on a trip like this, where every stupid idiocy that they think is a valid argument could be just smashed and smashed again, like a pumpkin, like a watermelon from a tall building. No, sorry, that's your argument. Here's the reality that refutes everything you thought.
So are you telling me it wasn't flood deposit then? It was like not.
I made that joke, and I got it on video. I'm so glad that I did that. I was videoing these guys while they're doing this dig. Right, one of them is the director of vertebrate samples at the NHS, and the other one is a professor at the University of the Witwatersrand. And these two are both excavating a pariasaur. Mm-hmm. And I said, "Are you sure this wasn't just caused by a flood 6,000 years ago?" And they both bust out laughing. And they said, they said, "We're absolutely positive." Yeah, and there would just be no way. No creationist ever could go on a trip like this and be able to defend any of their bullshit. But the problem is, I'm surrounded by the experts in the world, people who know what they're talking about. Who does other than the experts, right?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of silly because these guys they have YouTube channels, and they do interviews or debates really with people who are experts, and it's just sad. It's just sad to see that they don't know how much they don't know.
Exactly. They don't know that they don't know. They have no idea the wealth of what they don't know. It's just stunning how much they don't know. And my analogy for this is when a creationist is arguing for, their young earth creation or any version of creationism against, a paleontologist or what have you, it is exactly the same as a grown man, 40 years old, walks into an obstetrician's clinic to criticize them for suppressing stork theory. Right. That's just how far out they are. It's hard to wrap your head around how wrong these people are. They've just got absolutely no clue. Which is why they think they're on top of it.
One of my favorites is, I don't know if you've seen that, Aron. There was a documentary made by, I think it was the BBC in the UK, where they had a bunch of young Earth creationists go on a tour.
Coyne and Prothero in that one. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was Prothero who was the tour guide at the
Grand Canyon.
At the Grand Canyon, and he was asked what he thought about creation scientists, and he said, "I don't consider them scientists." And you just
they're definitely not.
Yeah, there's like that one 20-second clip has like 10 million views on YouTube. It's hilarious.
It's called the shortest evolution creation debate or something. It's called on YouTube.
It's something like that. The kid just says, "What do you think of creation scientists?" So I don't think they're scientists.
No, they're not. They're apologists.
Yeah.
What is apologetics?
It's like you're defending your beliefs.
It's systematically making up excuses to rationalize or justify or otherwise, arbitrarily dismiss any and all evidence against your preferred conclusion.
Sure. Yeah. that does.
It is the most dishonest position that is possible to have. It's the most dishonest defense of a dishonest position. It's the most dishonest occupation there can be.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it is really sad that these guys will go or gals, and they'll get a PhD in biology or in geology, and then they'll go and waste it by working for Answers in Genesis or ICR or the Discovery Institute or what have you.
A
Yeah.
It's just sad.
a PhD in truthology from Christian Czech.
Well, I mean, they get these people, Georgia Purdom, Andrew Snelling, they have legitimate degrees. They just waste them.
Yeah, and so there's a good example of Andrew Snelling is a great example of this. I don't know Georgia dipshits bullshit excuse, but I know Andrew Snelling's. He was a professional geologist. He himself personally dated the Kungura formation in the billions of years, and in the paper he published about that, he goes through all of this, the meticulous examples of how he did that, how he dated the multiple systems that he used to date this formation, and gives all the numbers and everything. It's all very highly complex and technical. At the same time that he published that to a mainstream geology journal, he also published to the Open magazine that would become Answers in Genesis, saying that the world's only 6,000 years old and all fossils are caused by the Great Flood. He knows exactly all the reasons why he is full of shit. He knows that none of the things he says are true. He knows exactly how to prove that he's full of shit. But he wants to believe because he wants to pretend that he's never going to die. He wants to pretend that he's best friends with the greatest being imaginable. He wants to pretend that he'll live forever. I don't know what the fuck it is that he wants to pretend, but that's all it is. It's make-believe. He knows, in fact, that it is not true. He just doesn't care.
Yeah. Yeah, it's there was another geologist who works for AIG, Kurt Wise, who did actually study under Stephen Jay Gould. So again, he knows.
Perfect example. So Kurt Wise goes home and he gets the Bible because unfortunately he was raised with religious indoctrination, and he decided that he's going to cut out everything out of the Bible that he would have to reject if his Harvard education is correct. And so he doesn't have enough left of his Bible to hold it together. Now, rather than take the rational thing and realize that, hey, a book about magic spells and wizards and witches and dragons and talking animals is maybe bullshit. Instead of that, he threw away his Harvard education to then become a professional liar for young Earth creationism.
People are asking, what are you drinking?
Oh, this is Devout Stout.
Devout.
Oh, very nice, very nice.
Yeah, I think it's most of the stuff that we drink is locally brewed in the Dallas area. I'm not sure. I think Devout is also, but I'm not sure about that. We have a lot of microbreweries in the area.
That's right. Yeah, I think I've heard you talk about that in some of your discussions. You do a lot of. You should get paid. You should get paid to to show off. Be like, and on today's show we have so and so.
Yeah. I love to advertise the local stuff, and people come when they do an event that's where I can attend. I will bring a lot of our local wares to share it with everybody. When they did the Faithless Forum here in Dallas, we had people from all over the world that were coming to Dallas for this, and I showed up with one of those ice chests that's so big that you have to cart it around on wheels.
Yeah,
and I had filled it all. It was all full of local brews, local craft beer. And I had fun sharing it with everybody, and everything. All the ABV is at least 2 digits.
Yeah, it was that was also a very fun event. I did actually get to go to Faithless Forum last year. I was sad that it got canceled this year, but of course COVID. But yeah, last year I enjoyed the heck out of that. We got to meet you in the meat space, as well as Kate Farr and lots and lots and lots of other people. I saw Matt Dillahunty briefly right before
I managed to get. I got some of the people since they planned this in Dallas, and I was angry that I wasn't part of the planning at first. But I managed to raise enough stink about that they let me choose one of the eating venues. And so I have all of these British kids meeting in my favorite Cajun, Vietnamese, fusion, boiled crab places. where they boil the crab in a ghost pepper sauce that really brings it to life. And it was so much fun to have all these foreigners in my restaurant. And
I think I saw one of the pictures of that you guys took. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, I have 2 or 3 restaurants I love to take out of town people to. And one of them is the Crab Station, where they do the ghost pepper crab sauce, which is really, really good. And another one is down in Deep Ellum. We go to Monkey Noodle, and I took Neil, the 604 atheist, took him there. And they have this one dish called Up to 11, which means, of course, it's completely over top. It's up to 11.
Right.
And they say that they made it with hate. So, the guy actually said, when we served it to him, I said, I want it hotter than you ever made it before.
I would think they'd be afraid to like eat with you because you might have their food.
There's another place. There's another place in the town that I live in where they make chicken wings, and they make Carolina Reaper chicken wings. But if the chef has to come out and visually inspect that it is me before he will make Fallout.
Oh my goodness!
Fallout is a special order he invented for me, and so I've been able to take a few foreign visitors into this place for chicken wing, for the Fallout, and that you can't eat more than 2 wings. They'll bring you 5, but you can't eat more than 2.
Oh my gosh!
You really can't.
Oh, I believe you. Yeah, that's
the last time. Yeah, the last time that I had them there. I mean, I remember having to stop on the way home and get out, just put my hands on the hood of the car, and just try to.
Oh my goodness!
It's Carolina Reaper, and it's not diluted at all. I mean, there's seeds in the sauce as you're eating it.
Oh my gosh!
It'll rip through you. It burns thrice.
Oh my god!
Because it's like when you go to pee, it'll remind you of that night you spent with Donna Rhea.
Oh my goodness! Oh jeez! Oh Lord! Well,
Carolina Reaper comes out in your urine, and you'll definitely notice what the hell was I eating?
Oh my goodness!
And don't eat it cold the next day. I did that.
It gets like spicier over time.
It's worse. It's so much worse. I pulled one of these wings because I had 3 left over. I pulled one of these wings out of the fridge, and I just decided because I felt whooped. I had 2 out of my 5 wings, and it was too much. I could not eat the 3rd wing.
Right.
So I mean, the next day I have one of these, and I'm just going to man through it. Right. I'm just like power through this thing, and I'm just going to eat it down and be done with it. And I spent an hour and 20 minutes kneeling before the porcelain throne, trying to figure out if I needed to induce vomiting.
Oh my god! Oh my goodness!
So bad. So don't eat it cold. It's a strange paradox, but it is so much hotter when it's cold.
Well, it's like it has time to like seep overnight, to get into the bones of the chicken.
And another thing I've noticed, now the next day I was still determined I'm not going to. It'll kill me or I'll get through it. But I ate the last 2 wings. I ate them both together. I warmed them up, and I ate a little bit and have a little sip of stout. And that's the thing. An ale will just spread it, but a stout helps.
Really? Huh. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I wonder why that is.
So anybody coming to Dallas, if you like spicy food, I'll take you to some places it'll blast a hole in your ass in the back of your pants.
like from Flubber, right?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
We went to this one place, the Monkey Noodle, the Up to 11, and I remember like eating the noodles and thinking that they didn't bring it. I was disappointed, and then I drank the sauce in the bowl. And by the time I got to my Jeep, I was like, braced against my Jeep going, oh, wow, can I drive home in this condition?
Oh, my goodness. It's funny. Actually, Neil, the 604 atheist, he was actually the very first person I saw right after I got to the hotel. I went, go through the door, and they have like the little seating area, which is where they do like the continental breakfast and all that. And so like right as I come in and I look over there, I'm like, hey, he looks familiar. And then I think I saw Jim Majors as I was leaving, and then of course I got to the event and saw everyone, and that was an absolute blast. I really hope that things get better and that we can do that again.
Yeah, it's a sad thing that the pandemic interrupted so many good events, not just the next incarnation of the Faithless Forum, but I was supposed to have been in London twice over the course of the pandemic thus far. There was a number. I was supposed to do a presentation at the NHS. It was I wasn't doing the presentation, but I was supposed to be at a presentation at the NHS, a conference that I was very much looking forward to. And then there was a number of conferences going on at once, and I was supposed to be at one that was going to be like the Faithless Forum, but going on in London. So I mean, all the Brit kids that were here in Dallas were going to be at that too, and then they were promising that they were going to be able to take me out and have curry that would match what I had shown them in Dallas.
Right.
So I'd been up and down Brick Lane already, and I've had the hottest that they've got. Wow. I did have some madrash in Soho that was really good, but unfortunately, the next time I went back to the same restaurant, they didn't bring it. I guess they didn't think I was up to it. They didn't remember me from before. I don't know.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I like a little bit of spice, but I can't. I don't think I could handle the depths that you will go to for flavor.
Well, yeah, the last stuff that I was talking about, the three top ones. There's respiratory issues. I mean,
yeah,
they're actually getting dangerous. The Carolina Reaper is dangerous.
Right. Yeah. Jeez.
And
that's pretty crazy.
What bothers me is a lot of people will advertise, a lot of restaurants will advertise their Carolina Reaper, but it's so diluted. Like if you went to this restaurant that I was talking about and you had their off the menu order of Carolina Reaper, that's nothing. That's not like Fallout. Fallout is Carolina Reaper too. It's just a lot more of it.
Right.
And that could potentially hospitalize you. So if you've been to other places and you've had their Carolina Reaper, you think, oh, I can manage Carolina Reaper. Pop one in your mouth.
Right.
You'll get a big damn surprise because that's a hell of a lot worse than what they gave you at the restaurant.
Oh, I bet. Yeah. One final topic before I let you go would be your recent series that you have now. I believe you finished up the Phylogeny series.
The systematic classification of life.
Yes, that was a absolutely stupendous series, going from the origin of life all the way up to I guess your last one was on sort of the origin of different races. So that was a few 100,000 years ago. Yeah. Yeah. And so it was a fantastic series.
It covered the last 2 million years, but most of it was the last few 100,000. Yes.
Yeah, that was a terrific series, especially going in depth on the therapsids and how many different transitions are taking place in that area.
Yeah, there was so much there. And the thing I like about that series was it was surprising when my wife suggested that I do it. At first, I didn't understand. I wasn't down with it, what she was asking me to do. I was a few episodes into it, 2 or 3 episodes into it, before I realized the worth of it. And I realized that nobody else ever has taken this approach before. Mm-hmm. For all of the different clades involved. Nobody had ever done that. And it just suddenly struck me that I was doing this thing that no one's ever done before. Why the hell hasn't anybody ever done this before?
Because there are, and I mean, even at the depth, the scale that you went into on this, even still, there were clades that had to be left out for, almost for brevity's sake. Otherwise, you'd be doing this series forever and ever.
Yeah, I could have made. There was one series where I did one episode. One episode, it could have been 4 or 5 different episodes because there are 4 or 5 different clades in there.
Right. Right. And I mean, there are loads of protist clades, for instance. We find like a new clade of protist every year. And so it's like, just another one add and so they're slightly more closely related to us, and
Now,
that's
I
kind
don't
of
know.
interesting, isn't it?
I don't know how it was when you started school, but when I took evolution in college in 1992, I remember they were still teaching Kingdom Protista.
Ooh, shoot me. It's funny because I'm a sort of a cladistic, I'm very anal about cladistics, and I took zoology a couple years ago, and the professor I had did actually refer to the 5 kingdoms, and I was like squirming in my seat when we had that lecture.
I still have my textbook, and the beautiful thing was that the textbook says that we're teaching this, but we know it's wrong.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was
we're
wrong.
going to teach. The textbook actually says we're going to teach the 5 kingdoms, but Protista could be a dozen kingdoms by itself, maybe more. We don't know.
Yeah, the 5 kingdoms thing was effectively, or was destroyed at least by 1984, I believe. That's when James Lake et al. Proposed the the domain Monera. Monera, Archaea. So Monera wasn't just bacteria anymore, right? There were now bacteria and also Archaeans, but of course Archaeans are more closely related to us than they are to bacteria.
I remember,
and so you're right. Yeah,
I remember it was like the 1970s when they made the news that they found out there's not just prokaryotes and eukaryotes, that prokaryotes are bacteria and archaea. I remember being a kid, I'm a teenager in the 1970s and hearing this news. And of course, nobody else in my family, they all saw the same news story that I did, but none of them remembered that.
Yeah, it's try explaining the concept of bacteria versus archaea, to sort of people who maybe don't have a background in biology. It's like, okay, yeah, it doesn't have a cell nucleus, and they're distinguished by what type of lipid makes up their cell membranes, and they're looking at you like, the what?
The way that I described them was that they were extremophiles. They were, able to withstand higher temperatures and greater pressures and conditions than mere bacteria could, and that genetically we have more in common with archaea than we do with bacteria. But again, it's just like you said, they're just lost. I had a conversation with my father shortly before he died, and I remember talking to him about I was in college. I was studying toward a geoscience degree, aiming then at paleontology, and I was telling him some of the things that they were teaching in school that I thought were absolutely fascinating. This is the stuff that I think is fascinating, and I'm sharing my fascination with him. And he said, "Well, I just got one question. How do you stay awake?"
Hurtful.
Yeah. It's strange how we don't see eye to eye at all. My dad was one of those who would sit back in his lazy boy chair drinking his Budweiser or Miller Lite and watching football. And I was doing LARPing, where I'd like put on a suit of armor and go out into a field and hit somebody with big sticks and shields. And he would ask me, "What's the point? What's the point? This is my own skill. This is me doing this. What are you doing?
All right.
You're memorizing the stats of somebody you're never going to meet. What's the point of what you do?"
Yeah, it's study of organisms is endlessly fascinating. In my opinion, that's why I feel that I want to go into. And there's just always something new to learn, not just in new discoveries that are being made constantly, but also all sorts of papers in the past that I find, which are about organisms I've never heard of, some group of insects or birds or whatever, and they've got some interesting adaptation I've never heard of before.
What's your level of education right now?
I'm about to graduate with my bachelor's, and then I go into the master's program.
You are still an undergrad.
I am about to get my
You're the
BS
same
in
level as I
organismal.
am.
Yeah, high five.
Dude, I thought you had a bachelor's years ago.
Nope, I'm just about to complete that. I'm only 22.
That's outstanding. I mean, here I thought you were, I thought you were already on a master's program at least.
No, my girlfriend is, and she's way
My
smarter
wife
than
just
me.
got her master's from Johns Hopkins.
That's awesome.
Master's in science writing.
That's awesome. Well, congratulations.
Currently looking for a job if anybody needs a science writer.
Yeah, that is really good.
So
yeah,
you said you're going to go on a master's program after this?
Yes, sir, and then PhD, hopefully in zoology. So.
Well, you can do that because you're 22. I'm about to turn 58. I just want to have some letters in my name to show that I have some validity before I die.
I think you can do anything you set your mind to.
Well, everybody wants to dismiss me because, who the hell am I? It doesn't matter that what I say is that I can show that what I say is correct. Especially not if I ever said anything in a completely unrelated field that wasn't correct. So you have to be. Why is it that we have to be so damn careful about everything we say? We can never make a mistake. But then the guy that makes $50 million and has the 4,000 seat sanctuary, he will lose subscribers if he says anything correct.
Well, I think that's because that's sort of the value of science in a sense is everyone's got a gun to everyone else's head because we're all trying to be completely correct about everything because we have such researchers, I should say, not there yet. Researchers have such integrity, at least in general, that they're all trying to keep each other honest and correct about the data. And that's why, a researcher can't be a mega church pastor.
Can we do a show? Can we do a show, you and I, about researchers who are not honest?
Sure, absolutely.
Because you want to talk about how we're supposed to keep each other honest, right? Nothing irritates me more than scientists who fuck with the rest of us by sensationalizing or misrepresenting something.
Oh, Lord, yeah.
I mean, I'll just say banned.
Oh, yeah. Alan Fiducia and his group is embarrassing. They really are. I mean, he had some decent publications in like the 70s, 80s, 90s, but he's just so irrelevant.
Let's you and I have a talk about that.
Yeah,
where we talk about scientists that have pissed us off for doing shoddy science or for misrepresenting data for sensationalist purposes or what have you. Because I've got a few examples of that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And they don't get enough attention.
Yeah, we should definitely do that. Or people who the researchers who are big fans of like the aquatic ape theory and stuff like that.
Yes, let's just make a list. Okay, so like the organisms in Mono Lake that were, do you remember this one? That were supposed to be a completely different order of life that that occurred from a separate abiogenesis event.
Oh my goodness!
Did you hear this story?
I don't. That's not the one with like arsenic in their DNA,
yes.
Is it?
Yes.
Oh, that's that one. Okay. Yeah.
Like the most earth-shattering news that ever happened in biology, and it was just some girl trying to get attention because she was I don't know. I think she's like a bachelor's student or whatever, and when you sensationalize science to try to profiteer off of it, it hurts everybody.
Right.
And the scientific community needs to come down to people like Alan Fiducia and what's his name, Rubin. Those people need to be called out hard. And I don't understand why they haven't been utterly shut down by the scientific community. I'm actually outraged.
Yeah,
hasn't completely shut Fiducia down.
Oh, that reminds me of another. Well, I think in part because other researchers recognize. In fact, he got his doctorate at LSU. I think he got, or maybe his master's.
The guys,
but I think part of the problem is they retain.
They made a covenant, literally a covenant, in the 1980s that they would always deny any and all evidence that might ever arise that hasn't been discovered yet, but that might ever arise, they have decided in advance that they're going to deny any evidence that may ever arise to show that birds are related to dinosaurs or descended from dinosaurs. They decided in advance that they were not going to accept evidence and that they were going to lie against the evidence. That's what the scientific community should have shut down. They should have put them on blast.
Right. Well, I think a part of the problem is they retain some of their reputable colleagues over the years, even if they go wonky, and so they still have friends to sort of protect them and stuff like that. But yeah, you're right. It's scary and it's sad. There's another one, Wickramasinghe, who was a friend of Fred Hoyle, and Wickramasinghe promotes the idea that viruses.
Hoyle.
Do what?
How do you feel about Hoyle?
Oh God!
Because I want to add Hoyle to that list.
We absolutely should.
While we're talking about bad scientists, we should definitely talk about Hoyle.
Oh yeah, and Wickramasinghe was one of his students, I think. And he basically proposed, like Hoyle, he's a fan of the panspermia, but constant panspermia. There are viruses constantly falling from space. There are genes constantly falling from space, which end up in animals like octopus. It's hilariously stupid. But yes, we absolutely should do a show on that.
Octopus is another one. They did it. There was a story 3 or 4 years ago about octopus being completely alien genome.
That was Wickramasinghe.
Yeah,
that was him.
So we definitely need to do that show about bad scientists, because I mean I'm gunning for that.
Yep, absolutely. I'll have to. We'll work on like our lists and then we'll combine them and.
I didn't know the guy's name. I just knew that the octopus genome being alien and all that crap, because it was completely unrelated to any other life form on Earth. Bullshit.
Yeah, I had a debate with an intelligent design guy who brought that up to me, and so yeah, that was a hoot. So at any rate, we've been going, I think we're just past the hour mark because we got started late. So I want to say thank you very much for coming on. Do you have any final thoughts?
No, I don't. I'm excited about the next show that we're going to do. Say a month or so from now.
Yeah, it sounds great. Yep, we'll get our list together. We'll research these guys, and then we'll come back and blast all of them. So
excellent.
Thank you again for coming on. All right, Peter, let's pull the plug.
Okay, I'll take us out.